march.
On your mark.
Get set.
Get set.
Now ready.
Ready, go.
Provocative, engaging, and usually quite a lady.
Okay, they're asking for it.
Deborah, go.
Is there anybody that actually likes confusion? I know I don't. I don't even like waking up wondering, what day is this? Now imagine how it must feel if you're looking around and you're wondering, what planet am I on? And it's starting to feel that way a little bit. It's like the world has turned, or certainly is turning, upside down. We're getting to a place where right is wrong and wrong is right. It's like bad is good and good is bad. It's becoming difficult for some people to figure out even some of the simplest things. I'm not even talking about anything complicated. I mean, if you go and ask somebody, oh, hey, will you please explain to me the theory of relativity? Well, you probably aren't going to get very many people that are going to give you an answer. They may quote the equation E equals mc squared, but they're not going to be able to break it down to you. Not most people. You can even ask someone, okay, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And you can get a serious debate out of that. But I'm talking about something that is like super duper simple. So simple that even a child can answer it. What is a woman? Now, maybe a child won't give you a definition, but they'll point to mom, or they'll point to a woman walking on the street. But nobody has to wonder and think about it and claim that, well, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a biologist, I can't answer that question. Who does that? Well, I'll tell you who does it. A person that fears being shut out. A person that fears being isolated because they are insensitive, because they are ignorant, because they are hateful, they are not inclusive. Increasingly, we're seeing people who, when asked a simple question, what is a woman? They hem and they haw and they, shrug their shoulders. I prefer not to answer that question. Please don't put the spotlight on me. Ask somebody, it's above my pay grade. Go ask someone else. I mean, people are really becoming fearful of the simplest things. And it's for good reason. People may be sent to sensitivity training at their job. People may be, fired from their job. People may not be given a job if they answer that really simple question, what's a woman? Here's Supreme Court Justice, now Supreme Court Justice, at the time she was a nominee, Ketanji Brown. She was asked that very question, and here's her answer.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I can't.
You can?
Not in
Okay.
this context.
So you
I'm not a
believe the meaning
biologist.
of
And it went on like that during her confirmation hearing. She just couldn't answer it. Well, come on, let's not play games. She could answer it, but she knew that had she answered the question and said it's a female human being, she may not have been confirmed. At least half of the Senate, certainly the Democrats, and not all Democrats, but the leftists there, they would have said, she's not ready for us. She cannot do this. We have an entire agenda that we're pushing here. And if our nominee for the U.S. Supreme Court defines what a woman is, it'll give too many people the courage to do the same. We need people afraid. We need people confused. We need people timid. And that's what they've got here. So why is this question, what's a woman? Why is this question so important? Well, it's important because increasingly we are seeing men who are saying, I'm a woman. I feel like I'm a woman. I identify as a woman, so I'm a woman. But that simply has no basis in reality, no basis in fact. This is, again, why language is so important. language has been redefined. It's constantly changing when it comes to the issue of transgenderism. The fact of the matter is, there is sex, which means male or female. It's an immutable biological fact. You can't change that. You are who you are. When you are born, and as a matter of fact, let's go way before you're born, actually upon conception, when the sperm fertilizes the egg, your sex is determined right then and there. It's all about the chromosomes. There's nothing you can do to change your sex. Point blank, that's it. That's all. Now, I know some of you are saying, but Deborah, there are people who are born with an extra chromosome, or they're missing a chromosome and they are intersex. Well, yes, there are people who are intersex. Well, guess what? Those numbers are so small. They are really, really small. So this is not a common occurrence. But if you listen to and you watch and you look at our culture today, you would think that this happens all the time. But therein lies the fallacy of the language that's associated with transgenderism. I was looking at the Intersex Society. They have their website. And you know what they say? They're very clear in pointing out that they have an unfortunate, malformed body, that this is an occurrence that happened in nature. They're not a different sex. They're either male or they are female. This doesn't mean that a new sex has been created, but this is exactly what the activists want us to believe. So despite all of the messages that we're getting, our grammar school teachers were right. They were correct. There are only two sexes, male and female. You have what you have. You are who you are from conception. You can't go and get a sex change. There's no changing that. It is what it is.
Day 335 of being a girl, and I wanted to go on record to say that this might be the hottest I've ever looked and will ever look in my lifetime.
We have plenty of people who will not let facts get in the way of their ideology, of their belief, of their feelings. And a good example of that is Dylan Mulvaney.
And I'm making this video so that in thousands of years, there will be evidence. Is it the dress? It could be the dress. Is it the makeup? Or is it the hair? Because I think it's the extensions. And when I have extensions in, I don't know my name. I don't know where I live. I just know that I love these. And I know that I look like I could steal a husband, but I want to promise you, look me in the eyes. I want to promise you that I would never do that to you.
Ha ha hardy har har.
Dylan, he has been on this countdown, the number of days that he has become a girl. Now, of course, he isn't, but he believes he is. But that doesn't make it so.
Yeah, you got that right.
So now that we have become accustomed to just interchanging the words sex and gender, it becomes more confusing. So just a quick word about gender. It's not a synonym for sex. I want to stress that for sure. Gender basically is a role. Gender is the cultural, it's the behavioral, it's the psychological traits that we associate typically with a sex. So that's why we can say boys, they typically do this, or girls, they typically do that. You look at an activity that a girl is doing and you say, okay, she's very girly. Or maybe she's doing an activity and you say, oh, she's acting like a boy. Same thing with a boy. And we use terms to describe someone that is acting outside of their gender role. Maybe we say she's a tomboy. When I was growing up, if a boy acted like a girl, they would say he's acting like a sissy. What people were really saying was that person is not acting in their gender role. And it's still customary today. That's because, again, we're talking culture, we're talking behavior, we're talking our psychological traits. So in one culture, let's just say, for example, it's common for a man to be at home and to cook and to clean. I don't know what culture that is, but I'm just saying. In our culture, we're accustomed to men getting up and getting out and going and working, and maybe they go on the weekends and they hang out with the guys and they play sports. They have a beer. They do guy things that we associate with being a man. So that's what we're talking about. We're talking about two very different things. We're talking about sex. We're talking about biology. We're talking gender. We're talking about behavior. We're talking about roles. That's all we're talking about. It's self-representation when you're talking about gender. So if we have a woman and she decides, you know what, I'm going to be who I am. And we see her walking down the street, chomping on a big cigar. And she's got, her big, heavy combat boots. And she puts her foot up on the curb and opens her blouse. She's looking and acting, I should say, like we typically associate a man acting. She's still a woman, no doubt about it, but her gender role is being tweaked a bit. So it's really that simple. Why am I stressing this? Because we're on the precipice of a very murky area that we don't want to go into.
Is that right? Yeah, that's right.
So what is the big deal? You've got a guy like, for instance, Dylan Mulvaney. He's having fun. He sees himself as a woman. He wants to behave as a woman. I don't think he's had his transition yet, but if he has had a transition, he believes he's now a woman. Even though he's not a woman, he has affected his gender. He's behaving by way of dressing, speech, everything about him. He's trying to present as a woman. So the question really could be, so what is the big deal? What's the harm in it? Actually, he makes me laugh, you might say. But it's more to it than just a happy-go-lucky guy who believes he's a woman. It's a lot more to it. You see, this convergence of terms, it has a real significant impact. It's not just happy-go-lucky guys like Dylan, but there are others who are really, truly struggling. People who are just being torn apart on the inside because not only do they believe that they can change their sex, that they can become the other sex, but you have medical professionals who are also fostering this idea. Even with children, you have teachers, some who are openly, others who are quietly telling children, you no longer have to be a boy. You don't have to be a girl anymore. You can change. You can be either one. You can go from one to the other anytime you want. Well, none of that is true. And if you're still thinking, what's the big deal? It's a real big deal. If we have our medical community, if we have medical professionals who are writing out prescriptions for puberty blockers, who are having children have their bodies being prepared for so-called sex change surgery, that's serious business. It's real serious. Chloe Cole is a young woman. She started this process as an adolescent. And by the time she was 15, she had had her breasts removed. But she is one of a growing number of young people who had, quote unquote, transitioned and are now detransitioning. They have said, you know what? I was just a kid. I didn't know what was happening. But my doctor encouraged my parents, who were only looking out for my best interest, so they believed. And I went through this bodily mutilation, all in the name of gender identity, all in the name of sex reassignment. This is not as happy-go-lucky as they all want to make us believe.
My name is Chloe Cole, and I am a 17-year-old detransitioner from the Central Valley. I was medically transitioned from ages 13 to 16. My parents took me to a therapist who affirmed my male identity, and the therapist did not care about causality or encouraged me to learn to be comfortable in my body. He brushed off my parents' concerns about the efficacy of hormones, puberty blockers, and surgeries. My parents were given the threat of suicide as a reason to move me forward in my transition. My endocrinologist, after 2 to 3 appointments, put me on puberty blockers and injectable testosterone. At age 15, I asked to remove my breasts. My therapist continued to affirm my transition. I attended a top surgery class that was filled with around 12 girls that thought they were men. Most were my age or younger. None of us were going to be men. We were fleeing from the uncomfortable feeling of becoming women. I was unknowingly physically cutting off my true self from my body, irreversibly and painfully. Our trans identities were not questioned. I went through with surgery. Despite having therapists and attending the top surgery class, I really didn't understand all the ramifications of any of the medical decisions I was making. I wasn't capable of understanding, and it was downplayed consistently. My parents, on the other hand, were pressured to continue my so-called gender journey with a suicide threat. I will never be able to breastfeed a child. I have blood clots in my urine. I am unable to fully empty my bladder. I do not yet know if I am capable of carrying a child to full term. In fact, even the doctors who put me on puberty blockers and testosterone do not know. SB 107 is circumventing states' laws and have needed safeguards in place so my story is not repeated. Children cannot consent. Vote no on SB 107.
Thank you.
Chloe's experience should not be taken lightly because there are now scores of hospitals across the country that are offering puberty blockers to children who feel that they have been born in the wrong body. And the interesting thing about it, puberty blockers they've been around for, 30 years or so. They were used, and perhaps still are used, for children who are developing far too early. Parents have done that. However, using puberty blockers for gender dysphoria, the FDA says that this is all experimental. Yet we see hospitals that are administering these drugs, distributing these drugs, parents that are approving of their minor children taking these drugs. So yeah, there are bills being written, bills being voted on to stop this madness, What I also find interesting, and I've read about this, where a lot of parents of children who they have in these programs to help them transition to another sex, and you can't see my fingers, but I'm putting quotes around that. They say they've done this, or they have chosen to do this because they knew early on, some say from the time the child was 2 years old or 3 years old, that they were in the wrong body because a little boy, he wanted to play with dolls, or a girl, she wanted to cut her hair short. Those are not reasons. Those are children being children. And as a matter of fact, reading from the Endocrine Society, this is the professional medical group that is oftentimes very much immersed in this whole process. But even they say that 85% of children who are experiencing gender dysphoria, they come around by the time they're teens. They come to terms with who they are and enjoy being the sex that they were born. So this is very, very murky waters that we're wandering into. There's something else that's happening. There's a group of people that really are paying the heavy price for all of this because we, again, as a society, increasingly, we are regurgitating non-facts as though they are facts. We are pretending, and when I say we, I really, really am pointing the finger at the medical community and at others who are far more knowledgeable, but who have decided to not tell the truth, to pretend as though people are capable, are able to turn themselves into something different outside of their roles, their gender roles, outside of surgery, outside of makeup and clothing, but to try and convince people that they can literally become a new sex by way of hormones, by way of cutting off your breast or your penis or doing any sort of surgical procedure to yourself. It's just not true. But while we're doing all of these things, while we're creating new laws, offering new protections for people who say, but I'm now this sex, I'm of this sex now, you are really burdening women when you have these gender inclusive bathrooms where men who believe they're women or who want to be women, they can just freely walk into the women's bathroom. That's not right. That's not fair. So a mom is in there with her daughter, and in comes a guy who obviously just looks like a man with a dress on. How is that fair? So women are paying the price here. Look at the sororities, where some guy says, I'm a girl, let me into the sorority. And this is not just a hypothetical. This has happened more than once. And then the sorority girls report seeing the boy who now wants to be a girl ogling them, sometimes with an erection. And you're saying, that's not no way. Yeah. You know why? Because he's actually a man. No matter what he's thinking physiologically, certain things are going to happen. So he sees all of these sorority girls running around in their underwear. Boing! Something happens. So women are paying the price. You look at the prisons. There are numerous accounts of men they've committed a crime. They're being sent to prison. And suddenly, I'm a woman. I have to go to the women's prison. Send me to the women's facility. Now, yes, sometimes they are already living their lives as women. You can't see my air quotes, but as women. But sometimes they're not. Sometimes they literally decide to become a woman right before having to go to prison. And you know what has happened in some of these cases? The female inmates are coming up pregnant. That's right. Once again, women are paying the price. We've seen this in shelters where a guy says, I'm actually a woman, and then we see cases of abuse. This doesn't always happen, obviously, but these things do happen. Women are paying the price. And you get back to the language, we're all being massaged into changing our language. And who's paying the price for this? Women. It's now fashionable to call women cis women. Yeah, she's cis. She's a cis woman. Nope, just a woman. Just call me a woman. Or in some cases, organizations, and I'm not kidding here, in sending out press releases or introducing a new service or program, instead of saying woman, they'll say menstruators. They'll say birthing people or non-men. All of that so they can avoid saying women, and they avoid saying women so they don't offend men who think they're women.
That doesn't even make any sense. I know.
We have no problem with people that want to live their lives the way they want to live their lives, but it's not fair, it's not right to perpetuate a myth and to tell us to embrace it as truth and as fact. We just can't do that. And you want a little dose of irony here? Here's actually the brutal irony. If we go back 70, 80, 100 years, from 100 years ago to today, well, not till today, to maybe like 5 years ago, whenever there was an incident or an issue where women were being unfairly treated, the feminists would come out. They would come out in droves. They would stand, they would march, they would protest. And now we don't hear a peep from them. Shh, shh. Now they're silent. In fact, some of them are even saying, we embrace the trans women too. Well, what about the women? What about the women who are born women and are just trying to live their lives? They want their spaces. They want to hold on to the gains that women have made. You know what? What's so funny about all of this? In any other situation, at any other time, all of this would be considered misogyny. That's what we would be calling this, misogyny. Men determine what they want, and you, little girl, sit down and get the heck out of my way. I guess the last point that I would make on all of this is that as a culture, if we continue to put forth untruths, if professional people, if clinicians, doctors, educators, the president, if we continue to allow people to tell a falsehood and try to force others to believe that it's the truth, there are a lot of unstable people out there who will literally believe that if we don't embrace it, if we don't acquiesce, then we're threatening them, that we're putting their lives in danger. We should be telling them the truth. And I don't want you to get this twisted. There are already people who are feeling threatened because someone doesn't want a man going into the washroom just because he has a dress on. Because a woman says, you know what, I don't think it's right that you're competing against me and you're bigger and you're stronger and you have better, I don't know, whatever physiology for this particular sport than I do. It's not right. It's not fair. Take a listen to this guy here.
I dare you to try and stop a transgender woman in my presence from using the bathroom. It will be the last mistake you ever make. This is a call to action. Go out, buy a gun, learn how to use it efficiently, through and through, because the time to act is now. You need to protect yourself and you need to protect your fellow transgender brothers and sisters and theys and thems. You need to protect the rest of us in the LGBT community.
Now, he posted this up on social media. He made no effort to disguise his face, to disguise his voice. He was looking straight at the camera, and I thought he was dead serious. And I was really surprised that no one had bothered to remove that, to take it down. But it sent chills up my spine because I thought, if this man is that outraged about not being allowed to go into a woman's bathroom, that he's calling for violence, in fact, murder, wanting to kill anyone that would attempt to stop him, that's very troublesome. And while, this guy bears watching and this guy definitely needs to be talked to by the police, I still look at it on a grander scale. That's why I'm saying language is important. And it's the responsibility of a society to protect one another. It really is. And we're not protecting children if we smile and we say, we're just affirming you. We're just affirming children that know that they're in the wrong bodies. That's not protecting them. It's not caring for them. We have to come to grips with truth. And I know we're at a point now where it's not fashionable. It's not politically correct. And indeed, in some cases, it's not safe. You threaten your security for telling the truth. The truth of the matter is there are things that are immutable, things that you cannot change. Your sex truly is one of them. As for your gender, if you choose to live your life outside of the norm of your gender, that's your choice. But for all that is good in this world, we have to be real. We cannot say anytime a person says, I'm something else, that's what they are. We can't do that because the impact is too great. The ramifications are far-reaching. It's not good for everybody. All right. And hey, this is coming from somebody that I love everybody. I really do. And that's why I want the best for everybody.
We cannot continue to live in a community that thinks that they can other people or define what womanhood is. Trans women are women, period. That's it. And when we celebrate women, we celebrate all women.
What did I just tell you?